Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Weighing In. I'm David Mirikitani with Mark Ostrander and Korean Turner. We're brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. If we weren't excited enough for Iowa versus Penn State week, the band is going to be together tomorrow, boys. I am excited. We are going to be at Joe's place live tomorrow on the Hawkeye Wrestling Club channel on Rockfin and possibly on USA Wrestling's channel. We're still trying to work that out on the YouTube, Facebook platform. We're doing basically a college game day pre-show edition. Big shout to Julia Beasley at Joe's place. And big shout to Chad Beatty, who Mark is very good friends with, who's really good friends with Mark's son as well. And the Hawkeye Wrestling Club director, I think, is his correct title. But boys, first of all, we finally get a picture together. Second of all, how much fun is tomorrow going to be?
I'm bringing hot chocolate and cookies for us to have, so isn't that what you do when you're in your 60s? I think that's it.
You're the Lee Corso of our show. So
yeah, I can bring a fruit platter too, if you'd like, David.
I'm keto, so no, bring some wings. I'm all about wings. So I think I'm paying my wing bet to GT later on tonight. I believe that's probably going to happen. So
is that because of the Michigan Penn State duel? Did Grant win that one?
We're going to go through that. I'm just sure somewhere I think I owe him for Mendez. Do we not? Or maybe I paid that bet. I don't know. I always owe somebody wings. GT, tomorrow's going to be awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be a really, really fun time. Really fun time.
Yeah. And we're just talking about we're going to watch this amazing dual meet and just jacked about that. So let's start, though, with probably the biggest news of the week, AJ Ferrari car accident. I think most people have seen this. If they haven't, if you're not on social, there was they were trying to pass. There was a head-on collision. At least that was how it was described. And I talked to, anyway, so he was in the car with a cross-country driver. Nobody died. No one is seriously injured. And I actually talked to AJ Sr., and it just so happened I was talking to him about Anthony and Angelo being in border brawl at the beginning of the week. Then this happened. We DM'd a little bit. I just called him last night just to say, hey, my family's praying for your family. I think that family is really misunderstood. I get some people don't like some of the antics, but they kind of remind me of like Lenny Dykstra. Like if they're not on your team, you don't like them. If they're on your team, you freaking love them. And he said AJ was back, that he was sore. He had one big bruise. If you watch the press conference with John and Dave Smith, the wrestling and cross-country coaches, they have the correct perspective. They all said something we all agree with. Anytime you get a call after 10 o'clock at night as a coach, it's never good news. I mean, we've all been there, right? Various degrees of bad news. But it sounds like AJ is going to be fine. I think the question is when. I don't know that there's much to comment on there. I just want to let you guys know that I talked to Big AJ, and I think Ferrari will be back before the end of the year. And what's really interesting about that wait is after Ferrari, it's chaos. Everybody has lost to people they shouldn't have lost to. Like Elam lost to Sloan, Caffey beat Dean. So it's kind of nuts. And also, if you took AJ Ferrari off of Oklahoma State and we go to, say, the team rankings, which we'll look at, they drop from a 60 to 70 point team to a 40 to 50 point team, which drops them out of the team trophies. Obviously, these are projections and things like that. And the great thing about wrestling is we actually do it on the mat. It's not like college football where you got to get voted in. 33 people get in, and usually the 34th guy wasn't going to be a guy that was going to win nationals. So I think I say for the three of us, thoughts and prayers to the Ferraris, to everyone involved in that car accident. And thank God, because if you look at the car, you just looked at the car, the injuries don't match up with the car. So, okay. So let's start out with, let's start out with USA Wrestling. I'm going to get into I have the email here that the USA Wrestling sent. Where is this? Here it is. So GT, you're our resident A, good hair guy, and B, international wrestling specialist. So they just added USA Women versus Mongolia to the bout at the ballpark. Super excited about that. I'm going to get to be there for that. I know you are too. I'll probably owe you another plate of wings by then. So you're not even on the Nike tab, you're on the Mirikitani tab. So,
Yep.
So in addition to USA, I first saw this, I was like, oh gosh, maybe Iran's not coming. Thank God, so this is an addition, and there's going to be a D'Angelo Hancock Greco match. So this is awesome. So the lineup for the women are Maroulis, Jakara, Miracle, Kennedy Blades, Vicky Francis. And then these are the credentials of some of the Mongolian athletes. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce any of these names, but placers at the Olympic Games are not medalists, but top 10s, senior world championships. So GT, I'll start with you. How great is it they're going to add women's matches to this thing?
I think it's great. I think it's going to be great for inclusion. It's going to be great for bringing in, a stud group of girls. I mean, these are all legit USA Wrestling female athletes. All, yeah, they're going to be really good. They're going to be really good matches. The Mongolian women's freestyle team has always produced extremely talented wrestlers. And then also to include our lone Greco medalist in Tracy Hancock to this event, and including Greco. I think it just bodes well for the USA Wrestling. It bodes well for everybody to see all three styles, with men's freestyle, women's freestyle, and Greco. I'm just really looking forward to having that freestyle component added to the already, nail biting Iowa versus Oklahoma State vibe. Really looking forward to it.
So, Mark, you're sort of my unofficial counsel on Missouri Border Brawl and all my events. And obviously the purpose of all those kind of events is to grow wrestling. I don't know if I'll ever get my event to the size of putting it on a baseball field, #goals, right? But they're looking at 27,000 people expected, and tickets as cheap as $15. $15 to see USA Iran, to see D'Angelo Hancock, to see our women's team, and Oklahoma State. I got chastised for calling them Okie State last year during the Big 12. Oklahoma State versus Iowa. What kind of bargain is this that USA Wrestling and those two college teams have put together for people?
Well, I think it's great. I mean, I can't wait to watch it. We're putting basically our best teams out there. And I'm sure there's a few women and a few men that, you could see being in there also, but everybody we got in there is top tier. I mean, they're either one or two at their weight. So that's outstanding. I just think it brings a whole different look when you bring the women in, which is great, because women's wrestling has exploded. I don't know if we haven't really talked about this, but Iowa just sanctioned girls wrestling. So, that's
high school wrestling.
Yeah, high school wrestling.
Just
So
people
that's
understand,
huge for the state of Iowa that they did that. It was about time. So this just, talk about putting a cherry on top, having the women there also, phenomenal.
I think that's the only time in the history of wrestling that Iowa was behind Missouri and doing something first, in terms of the girls sanctioning the high school level. I think we're all dorks, like when it comes to wrestling, and we'd watch it anytime, anywhere. Grant coached all day. I announced in Atlanta. The first thing we did was go back, order DoorDash, and turn on Oklahoma State, Minnesota. And if there would have been a second meet, we would have watched that. That's who we are. But I think these guys trying to grow the sport, the group, people trying adding more matches, adding women's matches, showing the athleticism of women. That's how you're going to, those kind of things are the way you're going to bring in more fans. And we are all blessed the lessons that we learned in life from wrestling. So that's just absolutely awesome. On the international side as well, the Euregan started, I'm so goofed up on time zones. I think they started late last night, GT. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, I saw some highlights already, and yeah.
Okay. So we recorded this on Thursday morning. We are recording this on Thursday morning. So it started late last night. We will talk about Euregan all next week. Just safe to say we got some hammers over there. Some, lucky enough, some people that we all know personally, people that have been on the pod, Deeringer, Pantaleo, those, Sunkiss sent out a strong contingent over there as well. And, that and Tbilisi are like sort of two of the tournaments when I was growing up that you're like, man, like this is like the legendary tournaments. Kind of Tbilisi was where Dave Schultz's sort of legacy was cemented. They just point people out of the stands to try to beat him. Nobody was making weight or anything else. So we'll go into the rankings and hopefully we'll try to hit all the upsets. Actually, let's do this. Let's go to our picks and see who was the most right. So GT, you picked, so we all picked Suriano. We were all right. We all picked RBY. That technically wasn't a major, right? They didn't give it to him.
It wasn't. He had it.
He did not have it. I think the score was 8-1, wasn't it, David?
GT and RBY got hosed. I'm just saying that.
I'm telling you right now, like if I was like watching my DraftKings or whatever it is, like I'm good in the major. Like I need the point, man.
So Mark and I do picks all year. He usually crushes me during the regular season and I try to catch up. So these are the kind of things we actually make like side bets on. I'd have been really mad. So you have like sort of a half, you were right on the pick, wrong on the score. Okay. Then 41 really didn't count because Nisik didn't wrestle. 49. That match lasted like 10 seconds. 57, we were all right. 65, we were all wrong because we picked Amin. If he wrestled and Berge won anyway. That makes, that puts Berge in sort of the round of 12 discussion, which we'll get to when we get to the rankings. Mark was wrong about Massa, but barely. Great match. Absolutely great match. We were all right at 84-97. And then GT was right at heavyweight, picking Big Kirk. I got a text about 14 seconds after that match was over. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I think GT won the picks because like technically missing on the major is not nearly as wrong as missing a match. like who won or lost. So GT wins. Shocking. So I was second just because of the difference between the Strachey Massa.
Now we're getting second place. Okay. All right. What was I, David? What did I get? Third?
Win place show. Win place show. Like that's
yeah. We're all taking something away.
Technically, we're not. You are. So, but anyway, so all right, I'll have you guys do this. Mark, if you're spinning this as a positive for Iowa or for Michigan, excuse me, how do you see this? Like, how do you say this is a good explanation?
Well, Michigan was in every match. Ragusa, not so much. Suriano did not look very good. He got pretty much shut down by Hildebrandt, controlled the position, basically a 1-point match. So that's kind of, eye-opening. I would just say Massa's right there. I would say Amin's right there at 84. Little Amin hasn't wrestled since the Vegas tournament, if I'm not mistaken. So, he looked rusty. He did not look himself. So I think there's a better side of him. Brucky went into overtime with Dean, and we all know how good Paris is. I mean, they could wrestle again, and Paris could beat him by 7. You just never know. So I would say Michigan's right there if you want to be positive for Michigan. Penn
Okay.
State's awfully good if you want to be good for Penn
Yeah,
State.
GT, make the argument, the easier argument. If you're Penn State, why the cause for optimism?
For Penn State, I
Yeah.
think the Penn State guys, I mean, you bring in a guy that was coaching less than 4 weeks ago, and, he's going out and he wrestles a extremely talented, Cam Amin, and pulls it out. And then once again, winners win, Strachey, Brooks, Dean, winning the close ones. And once again, like, RBY goes up against Ragusan, like national champs do what national champs do. Like, you have to go out and control the match and go get bonus points if you're the number one guy in the nation. Go be the man. So I think that all of those guys are running in the right direction all together, and then they'll be healthy for the postseason. Looks like they're going to be forced to be reckoned with again at the national tournament. And for Mark's point, Michigan's right there. All of those matches are super tight. You're in a good, you're closing the gap on them. So absolutely agree.
Yeah. I agree with both sides, what you guys are saying. A couple little cherry picks. Hildebrandt is going to be in a ton of close matches. He doesn't shoot. He relies a lot on his writing. The way to keep Soriano close is to not shoot on him. He doesn't shoot as much as he should for as good as he is. If you can make it a one takedown match, or can ride really hard, or just get away, you can get into maybe a riding time kind of match with him. Massa looked really good for coming out of retirement, and Kirkfleet, where this match makes a big difference is if Kirkfleet can take second in the Big Tens, Kirkfleet and Schultz are going to be the 2-3 seeds in some order. And that's going to put Paris and Cassiope against each other in the quarters of nationals and the semis with Gable. And those affect the team race dramatically. This development could really help Arizona State in a weird way, because Schultz will probably be undefeated. So let's go to the team rankings. Thank you, Mark Ostrander, for putting these together for us. I re-tier these every time. That fourth tier, that 6 through 9 tier is getting smaller. A bunch of teams are falling down and out of it. Congrats to Cal Poly and where they are. Big move for them. I would just say this overall, and if you guys want to comment on this, first of all, if you look at Oklahoma State, they would drop from basically 70 to 50, which would drop them from 4th to 7th. Or actually 6, because Arizona State would go to 4, NC State to 5. So it dropped them to 6. It feels to me like Penn State, shockingly, is moving up. And a lot of these other teams, things are happening that are coming back to the pack. Marinelli loses, which we'll talk about. Michigan, like we said, lost a bunch of close matches, but didn't pull really any upsets. Ferrari's in doubt. Arizona State, I talked to Coach Pritz. They're the haves and have-nots. They're really good where they're good, and where they stink, they stink. Like, they're not good in duels, but they could be good in tournaments. They got a bunch of guys ranked in the top 4, but nobody favored to make the finals. When GT, go ahead, you go first. When you look at the team rankings, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with the tiers where kind of you've broken it down here. I think that I still think it's going to be a little bit tighter of a tournament than where like kind of the aggregate of or average of scores have been throughout the year. I still think that like to win the national title is going to be more towards the like 106 to 100 point total, because I think that there's a lot more parity between a lot of these teams kind of in that middle area, that pink area with NC State, Ohio State, Nebraska, Cornell, throw in even Minnesota, Missouri, and Iowa State. They could score they could all kind of eat each other up there. And then, maybe knock off a few Iowa guys or a few Penn State guys or a few Michigan guys, where then that brings that all the way down. But I think the way that it sits right now, the way that the seeds and the guys have been wrestling, I understand where the tiers are, but I just think it's going to be a lot tighter of a team race than maybe what the rankings are proposing.
Yeah, Marco, thoughts?
Well, I agree with Grant 100%. I think you could actually, David, right now put Michigan and Iowa on the same tier. I think it's close enough now that they could both be, green. And then I think there is a difference between them and, Oklahoma State, Arizona State. Arizona State just has too many question marks. No finalists more than likely. Just too many holes that aren't going to get them any points whatsoever. Oklahoma State is more balanced, but they got maybe 3 or 4 guys close to the round of 12. But their other guys are pretty good. I mean, as long as Ferrari can wrestle, they got a finalist. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind on that. I think he is a finalist. And you can't say that about Arizona State. So I think Oklahoma State is kind of separated from Arizona State in that category right there. But then
Well, they have 2 finalists, probably with Fix, right? But
yeah.
and
But I don't know if Arizona State has any. So
no, they don't. But Whitlake is banged up, so we don't even know. Like who knows if how he's gonna become nationals. And then they got some guys that are ranked high that have never done it before, like Mastro, who's good, but you're not like, well, he's definitely gonna place. I mean, like after those top 4 guys, somebody has to be ranked 5th. But it's not like you go, I feel super confident, as opposed to like maybe Courtney doesn't make the finals, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't place, that kind of thing.
Oh, I agree. I think Courtney will place, but I think,
Right.
His ceiling's probably 4, pretty close, right around there, 4. I mean, he lost to Patrick Glory pretty handily when they dueled. So I just think there's a big difference right now between Oklahoma State and Arizona State. And that's the final trophy. There's 4 of them. And so, I mean, people got a lot of work to do, but there is still time to do it. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So quick comment, Vasquez is out for the year at Arizona State. So these people that got him ranked need to get him out of their rankings. And it's Oklahoma State versus Arizona State is kind of one of us got a bunch of guys ranked in the top 4 to 8 range. And then another team's got a couple hammers and then a bunch of guys that could sneak in, like Plot could place, Mastro could place, Whitlake will probably place, maybe Gear places. They got a lot of good maybes. So I would agree that Oklahoma State's probably a more likely scenario. The 110 points thing to me, I actually agree with you guys, but the math that we're looking at says otherwise, because Penn State was like at 118 and that's without bonus. So I feel like the first team to 100 probably wins the tournament. I would take that bet right now that probably 2 teams don't score over 100, but that'd be an interesting bet. Maybe we'll make it. So, okay. Rankings. I just highlighted a couple things here. So look, we didn't highlight them, but there's Mastro at 5, like we talked about. But again, like if he lost to one of these other guys in the round of 12, that's, like Heinzelman, Ayala, DiAugustino, it wouldn't be shocking. Heinzelman moves up. Very weird to me that, again, Mark, you and I, when we did our rankings, if they were 11 and 12 like that, you'd flip-flop them because Heinzelman just beat him head to head. Granted it was overtime, but so he's a guy that moves up. Okay. GT, buy or sell, Malik, All-American.
I'm going to sell. I think Malik will probably be kind of maybe a blood round type guy.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a couple of guys that like Brody Teske is back and healthy now. I think somebody like that would, get up there a little bit. Ayala, a freshman, you never know what you're going to get. So I think.
Well, he's got guys like Lamont, like you're saying, Lamont, Schroeder, Camacho, and Teske are all behind him.
Yeah. And I mean, I think also Malik is doing a very good job. He's beaten some good guys this year, but I just think, I'll sell on that one.
Yep. Not many changes at 33 this week, so we'll go by that. 41. So the big one here is Carlson, Heartbeat Carlson. So, and this is interesting. Like I just highlighted here, this is Flo. Flo's got Carlson at 7. And so that's, like everybody else has got him in the 11, 12, 13 range. It wouldn't change a lot like he would just be behind sort of Grant Willits, maybe not. Even if he was 13, he'd still be above there. But, one of the cool things about this stuff, we need to thank Christian Thompson from Fantasy Grade for putting this together for us every week. It allows us to see the disparity. For example, Dylan Duncan isn't ranked by 3 of the sources, but we saw on Twitter he's back. So, he'll pop in. Ryan Jack. So I just pointed this out. He's at 14 in one poll, 20 at 2 polls, 24th in another poll, and not ranked. So any of these guys with this wide disparity, that's sort of their high ceiling, low basement kind of thing, at least according to the rankers. And then Vasquez is here at 25 and he'll pop out. So, all right. So 49, here's where some things have happened. So Gomez has lost to Heil. Okay. But Gomez has some great wins. There's a bunch of that. Ridge Lovett has, dropped down after losing to Gomez. Yaya, we talked about last week, is down. But Heil's undefeated right now. And if he beats Milner, he's going to get a really good seed, depending on where Gomez finishes in the Big Tens. Because if Gomez were to make the finals of the Big Ten against Sasso, and Heil's undefeated, Heil's going to get a top 5 seed. So I don't know if there's a lot of, one of the things that I talked to Pritz about was, like, Parco has a really good record, but he lost to Bartlett, which doesn't help him. And really the only good match that he can pick up the rest of the way is Abbas, and Abbas is below him. So, but again, like if you look at Abbas, one source has him at 5th, and it's a bunch of variables here. So Mark, Gomez, All-American by herself.
Bye. I mean, have you watched him wrestle this year? Guy is phenomenal. He gets into position. He keeps going and going and going. And I know he can be put on his back in certain situations, but I just love the tenacity that he comes out with when he wrestles. He is in your face for 7 minutes. Ridge Lovett is good. I mean, this kid is talented, and he was all over Ridge. So, I mean, you just got to give the guy credit. He's beating the good kids. I would buy him without a doubt, being an All-American.
I think what was interesting is I originally thought he'd be too small for the weight, right? Because he jumped from like 33 to 49.
Yep.
And clearly that's not been a problem, So I would agree with you. Not a lot of changes at 57. Not something we can say at 165.
Oh, boy.
So tons of things here. First of all, I guess we'll start at the top. Wick beats Valencia 9-1. Got a text, hey, free stream on Cal Poly. Sat through 7 matches I didn't care about, and then the stream goes out, so I didn't get to see the match. So, because it was the last match. So, but 9-1. I mean, I think if you're Valencia, it's like, hey, man, you're going to have to get 2 takedowns and pick neutral, which I think is sort of the game plan against Wick anyway. That I think, Wick Griffith will determine who's the number 1 seed in the Pac-12. Karchla beats Marinelli on a short drag to, win the match. And Mark, that's your adopted son. So we talked about Karchla being a guy that could win nationals. He lost to Griffith out in Vegas. So there's all these sort of handcuff matches here.
Yep.
But it probably takes Marinelli out of the number 1 seed at nationals conversation if Wick or O'Toole can go undefeated, right?
Oh, I think without a doubt, that's not going to happen. And I don't think he needs to be the number 1 seed. So, I mean, there's just certain things I don't understand, David. And, as a coach, we talk about things, why you would lock up a front headlock on a guy that's got a really good little throw by from that position, instead of just going to the chin and behind the armpit and pulling down and burying his head into the mat where he can't do it. I mean, Alex Marinelli had the match won. I mean, he had riding time, less than 30 seconds left, and he locks up a front headlock and sits there with it and doesn't move. I mean, you know, I don't understand. So Grant, maybe you can explain that to me. As a coach, a current coach, I'm retired. So maybe you can explain why he would do that type of thing.
You know what? Like little mistakes. I mean, once again, if you feel comfortable in a front headlock and you got a guy that knows how to short drag, or you just feel comfortable there, you know, like some people feel extremely comfortable in an underhook. And it's like, I'm not going to get scored on. I got head position, I got an underhook. And then all of a sudden somebody fireman's carries you or headlocks you because that's their jam. You probably
somebody Bo Nichols you, double overs. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, I mean, I'll take that scenario. I'm up by 30 seconds left to go, and I'm in a front headlock. Yeah, I'll take that scenario a lot of time. Like probably 10 out of 10 times. I'm like, hey, I can be fine here. Just maybe just a lapse and just relax a little bit too much, or yeah.
I think it's habit too, right? Like if you're a closed grip front headlock guy, now you're supposed to change to chin and elbow with 30 seconds left. Like that's probably not what you're going to do. So GT, I got a different question for you because you know Carlson really well because of his freestyle prowess.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carlson in a different weight class would be favored to win nationals. It's just these top three guys above him are so good on top. I think they can win the match without a takedown. You know, so let me put it to you. Buy or sell Carlson, the best guy in the weight class on his feet.
Ooh. I would say probably sell. I mean, you got to remember Keegan O'Toole's a world champ. Yeah. Shane Griffith, national champ. Evan Wick.
Really, really good.
Just a beast everywhere.
Senior level USA Wrestling All-American. Yeah. Trials qualifier. Anthony Valencia, Mexican national team. Unbelievable. And Dean Hamidi is just blowing dudes up.
Right.
Like he's undefeated majoring people right now.
Jake Wenzel, finalist, NCAA finalist at 13. You know, like we got a lot of talent in that group. Now, once again, not to say that Carlson could not be one of the best wrestlers on his feet, but I mean, he's got some pretty good company right there. And that weight class is stacked.
Right.
Yeah. David, I think one thing you're trying to get Grant to say, and I think Grant would probably agree with, I think positioning wise, Carlson is probably right there at the top of this group. He stays in such good position on his feet. He's so hard to get in on. But when you get into scrambles, and that's exactly what some of these top tier guys are looking for, that's a different situation because all of a sudden you're not just on your feet, you're in different positions. And the kid from Wisconsin, like you said, that's what his bread and butter is. He's going to score a lot of points. Can I buy him as an All-American, David?
Well, you can, but he's 8th, so it's not a real courageous pick.
Dude, he wasn't on it.
So
He's
I'll let you buy it. I'll let you buy it, Mark.
Can I buy it? Okay.
Yeah, GT is the reigning wings winner. It's just super simple. Not a lot of changes at 74. Lout beats Fine Silver, so just wanted to point that out. 84, Poznansky got pinned by Malchewski. Those are two fun names to say, although if your last name's Mirikitani, you should probably get those right. Donnell Washington, which is the easiest of the three to say, takes a loss. We already talked about Brooks Amin. So, you know, I don't think there's a lot to say there. They're nip and tuck. I kind of like Mark's pick that maybe Amin gets one before the end of the year, you know? So we'll see. 97, obviously highlighting Ferrari. So I just pointed this out. If you can see, Buchanan is ranked anywhere from 2nd to 7th. Elam is ranked anywhere from 4th to 9th. Schultz is ranked anywhere from 2nd to 7th as well. So it's just kind of chaos at this weight. You know, Caffey had some bad losses earlier in the year, but then he goes up and has a huge win over Dean. Dean sort of dodged the bullet against Brucky. Brucky is going to be handcuffed to Buchanan. Buchanan beat him at Cliff Keen, but he beat him because of an injury restart. They each had an escape and he got to start down again. But again, that's going to make a big difference. Now, what's really going to be weird about that is Buchanan is going to probably be the 2 seed at the Big 12s, assuming Ferrari comes back. And then Buchanan and Elam would be the 2-3 seeds. This is probably the best weight in the Big 12. So I don't know. There's a lot to pick here, but there's just, I don't know. Like, this is like a stupid one, but I'll say this. I would buy that any of like 6 guys could make the finals against Ferrari. Ferrari's at 100%. Like, I think you'd rather be the 6 or 7 seed at this bracket than the 4 or 5 seed. Because you get to be on the bottom half of the bracket. And so, this is another weight with huge team point implications. Like, Brucky could be second or Brucky could lose in the round of 12. That's a huge difference for Michigan. Warner's probably going to place. He places every year, but he could make the finals or be in the 7-8 match. Max Dean, sort of same thing, because all these guys have proven they can lose to somebody below them. So, and then if Norfleet can get up there, big difference. And I pointed out Sloan, who's anywhere from 11th to off the board. You got to rank this dude. I don't know how he's not in your top 25. You should be in your top 25 for beating Elam alone. So, heavyweight. All right. So first of all, Hilger took a loss, but we talked about this match. Can Kirkfleet, if you have Kirkfleet wrestle Gable 20 times, can he steal one? GT, can he steal 1 out of 20?
No.
I mean, in wrestling, in wrestling is very similar to, like, I don't know, let's call it boxing. Like, yeah, there's a puncher's chance that you might clip somebody, but like, if you're that good, you're not going to get clipped.
Yeah.
But once again, out of 20 matches, I bet you Gable wins all of them. But doesn't mean that, like, some of those matches might not be in overtime, or maybe Gable gets a major or a tech on him once. I mean, there's so many variables, especially at a heavyweight. And these guys are super athletic.
Yeah, it's not your normal. It's not your normal fat guys leaning on each other who can get 2 more seconds of riding time, right? Like, these guys are like 197 pounders, just bigger. Like, they're wrestling like that. So just something to point out here. Schultz not wrestling Kirkfleet at the collegiate duels, probably a really good decision for Arizona State, assuming Schultz would have lost the match. If he'd won the match, it was, would have been great. But he's going to probably be undefeated. I mean, his biggest match is probably going to be Gas Tank Gary in the Pac-12 finals. So a couple of other things to point out here. Joe Colon and Joe Rao are going to Northwestern as new coaches. I would think that means Andrew Howe is on his way out. He's too good of a coach, so he's going to end up somewhere. Just something for people to know. And one last thing, and then we can do some sort of preliminary stuff on Iowa, Penn State. The coaches poll came out. Okay. So the coaches poll is a huge part of the formula. Okay. The formula has like 6 or 7 criteria. It's head to head. It's common opponents. It's conference, whether you're a conference champion or not. And that's an important distinction. Like, if you take 7th or you take 8th or 2nd or 8th, it's the same thing. And then winning percentage. But coaches poll, I believe, is 25%. So that's where biases come in. And do not get this twisted. The coaches poll is a lot like the football poll, where they're not watching everybody wrestle all year, because that's not their job. Their job is to coach guys. Every year I have coaches that I am friends with that I will send our chart to, and say, look, here's the composite rankings. You do what you want with them. Sometimes people even say to me, when we were doing the rankings, Mark, why do you have this guy ranked ahead of that guy? And I would give them the criteria. But most of these guys are not going on Track Wrestling or WrestleStat and looking up everybody's, head to head and performances and all this other stuff. And sometimes people call each other and go, hey, if you give my guy a ranking, I'll give your guy a ranking. Like I know people that have told me that those calls have been made to them. So, but the coaches poll is going to have a huge impact on things, like big impact. It doesn't come out as often as these other sources rankings, but definitely something to look at. Okay, so I'll go back to the share screen real quick just to point a few things out real quick for Iowa, Penn State. So if you look at this, Hildebrandt is 8th, Ayala is 11th. A couple other people have them ranked like 8 or 9. Anytime people are that close, that's sort of a toss-up match. At 33, 1 and 3. 41, 1 and 2. 49, where are we at here? Murin is 10 and Bartlett is 17. But again, I'm not sure Murin would be a big favorite in that match. I think Iowa's biggest favored match is at 57. Caleb Young is ranked 12th and Penn State's not ranked at all. So I feel like if you're sort of counting surefire wins, this is probably the first one and it's for Iowa. 65, Marinelli's 5, Bergey's 10. Marinelli's a favorite, but certainly probably not a bonus point. 74, unless you're living under a rock, that's number 1 and 2. 84, probably the biggest favored match for Brooks. For Penn State, Brooks is 1, Assad is 16. No offense, but I think now it's 1-1. Okay, in terms of matches you'd feel real comfortable about. 97, number 2 and number 3. And they're very close to being flip-flopped. And heavyweight is 2 and 4. Number 2 and number 4. So you're talking
2 and 5, Dave.
2 and 5, excuse me, 2 and 5. Okay. So you're talking about 8 matches, even if you take the Marinelli match out and say that's him, where they're ranked within 3 or 4 slots of each other. So we are, by the way, we are going to do our picks tomorrow. The show's going to be on at 5:30 Central Time, live from Joe's place once again. So I'll give you guys each like a minute to just maybe your overall summary opinion of the duel. Mark, you can go first. Age Before Beauty.
Well, I think it's going to be really close, David. I think it's going to be who gets on a roll early. I think there will be some upsets. And like you said, with guys being only 1 or 2 apart in the rankings, I'm not even sure if Kemmer beats Srirachi, is it considered an upset? I'm not sure it really is because he beat him last year in the Big Tens, lost to him in the finals in overtime, but his win was a lot bigger than his loss. Not so much that it was the national finals, obviously. I think Kemmer would switch that up. Sure. Yeah, but the margin of victory was a lot bigger. And of all the guys on Iowa's wrestling team that is wrestling really well, I would say Michael Kemmer is probably right at the top of the list. So, so understand that some of these are going to be really competitive matches. And when you go to an arena like the University of Iowa and you get Harvard, if you go out there with 16,000 fans and you are so excited to get this going, and all of a sudden in the third period, your legs turn to rubber. And that basically happens a lot to people that go out and use all this energy right away. Iowa's used to it. It's Penn State used to it. And I know they fill their arena also, but nobody fills an arena like the University of Iowa. And when everything's on the line, it's going to be a shootout.
Yep. GT, thoughts on the duel?
Fireworks, bud. Looking forward to it. Number 1 versus number 2 inside Carver. You got to be kidding me. If that doesn't get you like jacked up to watch these 2 teams go at it, 2 polarizing different styles of wrestling, 2 different styles of coaching staffs, freshmen's in the lineup, returning finalists going up against each other. The storylines are crazy. So no Spencer Lee in this duel. All of the crazy things that have happened this year for both teams, Bergey coming back, Nick Lee being hurt for a while, all of the things that are basically leading up to this. Oh man, it's just exciting. And plus, yes, Carver is magical. 1 versus 2, Big Ten Network. You know, the whole nation watching. It's gonna be a good day to be a wrestling fan for sure.
A couple quick notes. Number one, focus on the importance of the portal for both teams. You know, when you guys are watching this, the duel, there's so many guys on each side that are hugely impactful that came from the portal. Number two, and GT, just to expand upon it, the personality styles of the Iowa staff versus the Penn State staff, super different. You know, how they deal, how they fire their guys up, everything else, that's a really big thing. Number three, we talked about the matchups. What's great about this duel, though, is it's not like Team A is favored big time at 5 weights. Team B is favored big time at 5 weights, and it's going to be who bonus is. Because, you know, those matches are fairly boring to watch. It's like who can get to 8 or 15 or a pin. There's a bunch of toss-up matches in here. I mean, this duel could go 8-2 one team or 8-2 the other team. I would bet it's within that 6-4, 4-6, 5-5 range, but it could happen. There's, you know, a ton of things that could go that way. And I'll give a shout out to GT and to Shane, since I'm going to see those guys tonight, 2 Nike schools. So
Let's go.
let's go. So guys, please, if you can, watch us tomorrow. I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited about tomorrow, period. Just being up there. My guy, Jason Keck's coming in for it. We're going to get to do our show. We, Chad Beatty invited us to an event. Ryan Warner invited us to an event. Going to be awesome. And then we get to watch it with the Super Bowl of dual meets this year. Thanks everybody for watching, listening, and sharing. See you guys next week.